Hi, everybody. Paul and Ian's one-man show here. I'm Ian, and that's Paul. And we're speaking again with Hannah, who is our translator of the Dalibor Petru plays. Hannah, welcome from Prague. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you. I'm glad to be back with you.
So, what do you make of Petru and Noel Coward? That seems like, how did that happen?
I'm totally confused, I must say. Um, I I don't really have a good explanation of how he could possibly have come by the play, because Noel Coward wasn't really staged much in Czechoslovakia. I checked. I only checked when we realized that this Petrus play was inspired by Coward's work, and frankly, so far we haven't come up with any good explanation. One of the mysteries would be that Private Lives never were staged in Czechoslovakia. So other plays were, but only between 1945 and 1947, and then again in the 60s.
Mm.
Uh, but again, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Maybe someone brought the play to him, or he found it in someone's library. We don't know.
Interestingly enough, Paul had a different take on it because when I saw the title "Private Lives, Public Lies," I thought, "Oh, this is John Hannah." And Paul said it was more about another Coward play designed for living. You remember, Paul, when you sort of
Yeah,
like
because when Hannah sent it to us, the triangle was such a big part of Design for Living.
Mm.
It's funny to me. I think it's kind of he's being ironic, I guess, by calling it Private Lives, because I don't think it's much about private lives.
No, I did, but it's more about public lies, which
Yeah,
I thought
public
there was a
lives.
fascinating thing for the title. So
Well,
the
there's the
other
discrepancy, right? I mean,
Yeah, but the thing is, if it's a bit of Czech plagiarism, it's actually much more to do with design for living than it
mm.
is to be about private lives, which I think is a much more lightweight play. I don't know what you
It could be
think.
that he's just commenting on Coward's work in general, and I don't know, maybe the title suited him. You know how it is when you do a
He
title.
may have just read a review which gave a synopsis of what the action was, and took it from
Or
there.
you know what? Maybe he just didn't give it much thought. Maybe it was just the case because this play obviously is a rather significant digression from Petru's usual endeavors, right? Because I mean, uh,
Well,
his
one, he's
other
being
plays.
funny.
Well, yeah, and it's not the theater of the absurd, which was obviously, the kind of theater he was interested in most. It
Mhm.
was, something that was most popular when he started writing his plays, etc., etc. It and these it was, highbrow intellectual sort of theater, which this is not. Maybe he just, you know,
But
he could
also,
have.
yeah,
Sorry,
can I just, yeah, yeah, could I just say, sorry, I just wanted to, because you just gave me a thought there that in fact, this whole thing about Radic and his art and stuff like that, and he doesn't want to be he doesn't want to be part of the dissident thing, and he's sort of like uh, is just there being more popular. Maybe
uh-huh.
that's what Petru thought. hey, let's try and write a comedy.
maybe, and maybe he, maybe he used Coward as an inspiration, but he could have used, I don't know, Oscar Wilde just as well, just so maybe the inspiration wasn't too direct. He just thought like, oh, let's write a comedy like anyone, Howard or someone else.
And he just starts with this thing, which is the sort of like the triangle.
Quite,
and,
yeah.
And the triangle is a complete triangle. Paul, you said that thing about how the triangle was tighter than the
that cliche, the parts that are not, the sum is bigger than the sum of the parts, the final thing. And that's kind of the way I look at it, is this triangle, each one of the people is a little bit flawed, but when they're together, they're not.
Right.
Because their love for each other is boundless almost. But when they're separated, then all these other things start happening.
And then and Shaka isn't just the woman that two men are in love with. She's part of the whole thing. And when she says, this is where I am now, we need to be together.
Well, it's, I just want to comment that this triangle sort of is standing on one point, which is the soundest, and that seems to be Sharka in a way, she also, she seems to get things done and, have a clear idea of what, she's doing, etc., etc. While the two men, not so much, I'd say. Or not always, definitely.
Well, she made she made Radek for sure. And maybe she made Yakub as well,
Yeah, it's, one thing I've been wondering all the time is just how to what extent she really has been using Radek for her own goals, like how conscious it was. I don't know. I'm curious.
You sounded like Yakub now, just saying she's better with me than with you.
What's the Czech word for coward?
Zbabělec. It's a very famous novel. It's a very famous novel by Josef Škvorecký.
And you mentioned that to me, that you saw some papers that originally he wanted to call it that, but he couldn't because people would confuse it with the novel. So I wonder if the whole thing about Null Coward is a play on that, on the word coward.
And who's the coward in this play?
Radek.
It's Radek.
Right.
Because he
calls him a coward several times in the play, doesn't?
Yeah. He says, or alludes to his lack of bravery.
Right.
Yeah. It's and you know what? I mean, it's a big word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's heavy. This is actually another thing that like, it is a comedy. There's a lot of laughter, but there's some of the themes are obviously rather heavy, aren't they?
Right.
But that's no coward too, because in all of these things, everything she's making some sort of like social satire on the bourgeoisie and how they are. And part of it is a bitterness in his part because he can't have those heterosexual relationships. He can't have a marriage like that sort of stuff. And he really has a go at people. And that's, that's in, I think, The Vortex, Fallen Angels, Private Lives. They're all about what is marriage and what is a stable relationship.
Yeah, and in Private Lives, in some ways, is similar to Design for Living in that you have two marriages. that become fractured, and then they're resorted in different ways.
Mm.
Mhm. I wonder if that might be the point where we can leave it, because that's how we have, having spoken to Hannah again, we've got some greater understanding of the mind of Dalibor Petru.
And I'm looking forward to seeing the other ones that Hannah's working on too, because it sounds like from her little hints, there's some other interesting themes coming out.
Definitely, and I can totally promise you that it's very, very, very different from this one. So
Oh dear.
you'll see. You'll see.
Right. Hannah,
Once I'm
we
finished.
thank you so much for spending time with us. It's nearly, well, it must be 10 o'clock at your time now. And we appreciate that you do that when you've got everything else going. And you've done great work for us so far. And we look forward to working with you in future. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, and thank you for giving your time to Dalibor Petru.
Okay.